I had a real estate closing this morning. It was a lovely young couple, probably early 30s, got a couple kids. They're young, 2 and under, and they're refinancing a house. Great. The husband is the borrower. The wife's a non-borrowing title holder. So she retains ownership rights to the property, but she's not signing on specifically to have financial liability for the refinance. But what really struck me is that during this process, she hadn't read a single document. She didn't read a single document. Now, mind you, they had access to review these online in advance of the closing. And as we sat there, this was a remote closing, so we were online completely for this. As she sat there, her husband, and he was very nice, and he wasn't trying to bully his way through anything or nothing like that. But he kept asking her, "Do you want to read this?" She said no. "Do you want to look this over?" She said no. Every document that she needed to sign when she was asked if she wanted to look at it, including a closing disclosure, which outlines all of the financial side of this. "Do you want to look at this?" "No, I trust you." And that's fantastic to, obviously, you want to trust your spouse, but she was so disconnected from this entire process that it reminds me of me in my first marriage, specifically when I was younger and had young kids and, bought a house. We refinanced the house. But what I didn't consider was even trying to understand what I was signing my name to. And, years and experience have taught me that that's a horrible plan. Just the idea that you'll sign legal documents without so much as taking a glance at them at this point in my life is quite baffling. But that's what this young couple was doing. That's what this young lady was doing. It was clear her husband had looked everything over and, he was the borrower. He had gone through the whole process, really. But she was still signing on to these documents and acknowledging that she was aware of what was going on and that she was okay with it. And she did not have a clue what was in those documents, at least based on the closing. I just think that in this day and age, we need to be responsible for understanding what we're doing and what we're committing to and just what we're being responsible for. So it seems kind of unnerving, I guess, to me that this pattern of behavior is continuing, even knowing what we know now. Because when I was doing this in my own life, I was probably maybe a little bit younger than they were, my late 20s to early 30s. And 20 some odd years later, I am still watching people do that, where the wife is deferring to her spouse for reassurance that everything that they're doing is good and right and accurate and in their best judgment and in their best interest for themselves and their family. And I think that anymore, you can't just blindly trust, arguably, anybody, really. Trust but verify, I think is kind of how it really should be. Of course, you want to believe that your spouse has your best interest at heart, but relationships don't always work out the way that you want. Marriages don't always last the way that you want. And you need to understand what's going on at this point in time, because there may be a point in the future where you'll be responsible for having to go through some of those things on your own. And having built the financial experience as you've gone through it as a couple will help you if you have to go through it as an individual. And so it's just something that I just want to, I guess, put out there, that there's nothing wrong with looking at the documents. There's nothing wrong with asking questions about the documents. There's nothing wrong with understanding, even if it's just where to find pieces of information within them. It's, I think, a responsibility that we have as adults, as women, as parents. If we don't know how to do it ourselves, we're not going to be able to teach our kids how to go through this. And if we can't teach our kids how to go through this responsibly, then they're going to be left to, again, blindly follow the advice and the instruction of others. And I don't think that that's ever a good position to put yourself in. You know, having deep faith in someone is great. Having blind faith, I don't think it's so great. But that's just my take on it. And it was just yet again in my face, one more example of how this happens in more closings than I can even count at this point. So look out for yourselves, ladies.